doing so well against control decks at the moment. Really favorable matchups across the board. So seeing them both banned out is the logical bans, and the classes are of course mirrored from here on out, but the decks and the archetypes they're bringing are slightly different. If you'd like to elaborate more, Gia.
Yeah, the Druids and also the Warlock, as I forgot to state, because Navi does have that only Q block in our top 16, which we did see take some very memorable wins in spectacular fashion against Muzzy earlier on in the day. And NaviOOT actually did get the win against Muzzy also in the Swiss, and proving that he can prove consistent with this deck when it is in a favorable matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Navi's had a really good run to the finals. They've beaten a lot of, or semi-final, sorry, beaten a lot of good people here. Casie, just another name that he's going to have to overcome if he wants to book his spot in the finals. And the first match we have here is the Hunter Mirror, and these are both Death Rattle Hunters. So let's find out a little bit more about how this game is decided. And for me, it really does come down to who can get that board rolling first.
Yeah, it's a big deal about the board, but my first instinct as a caster whenever we run into a mirror is to check what differences they have in the tech. And the most notable difference is this inclusion of Charged Devilsaur from Navi, which we did see put in some work a while ago. He also has that one of MC tech, which is absent from Casey's list.
I believe Casie then on the flip side is running Giggling Inventor, which isn't something you see all the time, and then running that Savannah High Main instead of the Charged Devilsaur. So both similar concepts with these types of inclusions. I guess Navi's list a little bit more of a nod to the aggressive style with Charged Devilsaur.
Yes, and I do think that the list from Casie is going to more consistently curve out, and we can see that it's exactly curving out in this hand of his right now with the 3, 4, 5, 6. But with Navi's deck, Casie has to be a little bit more careful with not only how much he extends on board, but how low he puts his health total, because having this Charged Devilsaur as an additional form of charging large beast to that King Crush is something he has to keep in mind throughout the whole game.
Now, interesting turn for Navi to work through here. Can play out the Houndmaster Shore and use the Hunter's, or use the Hunter's Mark to get rid of the 5/5 on board. Chooses to play the Houndmaster Shore, and this is a play I like. It forces an answer from Casie, and if there's none to be had, then there's high reward on the back of it.
Yeah, and that first swing onto the Charged Devilsaur, regular Devilsaur, means that if Casie is going to trade into the Shaw, which he most likely will, Navi can kill it off on the next turn. Simple 2-turn setup, just clean mechanical play, and with a draw of Terror Scale Stalker, Navi can start summoning his own 5/5s onto the board.
Yes, his hand definitely starts to open up now with that Terror Scale Stalker coming to hand, the Witchwood Grizzly, of course, being drawn the turn before, and contests that 3/3 nicely. But the Stalker, while I guess a little mana inefficient, puts much more stats on board in terms of pressure.
So because of that mana inefficiency, Navi is instead just going to go for this Grizzly, which does a good job of challenging that 3/3. And the natural play for Casie is looking like the Giggling Inventor, and this Mossy Horror could very, very heavily punish that. So with the draw of Casey's own Grizzly, I think he's very happy to play that instead.
And we see Casie in Casie fashion, not taking too much time to think through the turn there. That Grizzly coming down to contest Navi's Grizzly, and you know, this really has looked like a bit of a true mirror match so far in terms of how these turns have played out.
Navi has the option to Hunter's Mark that down and fit in this Terror Scale Stalker, and if he wants to, can value trade the 3/3, but I don't see much reason for it. It's not too scary of a cube target minion. Can start pushing some face damage if he likes.
Now, this is the part of the game where those tech decisions can start to play a factor. With Casie not including a mind control tech, Navi doesn't have to worry about going to 4 minions on the board. This isn't true for Casie, and it can create positions which give Navi an advantage throughout the middle of the game just because of that.
Yes, and Navi there hesitating a little bit about whether he wanted to trade or go face, and I did outline the reasons why he didn't have to worry so much about trading off, but I suppose the only punish here would be another Hunter's Mark Candle Shot, allowing the 3/3 to then trade into the Terror Scale Stalker. It's not too likely of an outcome, so Navi, I think, wants to take a more aggressive position and really play for what his deck is designed to do with the second charging big beast.
Wow.
And wow, Mossy!
The punish is about to come down. Mossy Horror is going to clean up the Giggling Inventor, the Annoyatrons, and both eggs. So while some 5/5s hit the board, Navi has the advantage both in terms of tempo and board presence. This is a very strong position for him.
And I'm thinking of pushing this all face.
I like that.
Because Casie doesn't have mind control tech, as you mentioned, in his list. Even if there were to be a Rexar coming down, I guess that incentivizes the 5/5 to go into the 5/5, but it's not great of a Rexar. It's not clearing everything up, and it's a very slow turn.
I think if anything, it incentivizes the 3/3 trade because you're more worried about protecting those 5/5s than you are about the Witchwood Grizzly dying.
Well, if there's Rexar and both 5/5s are gone, then you cannot kill the Grizzly.
Right, but you lose your 5/5 in the process, which is what you're trying to protect.
Sure. So with that, Casie is looking like this game is over very soon. He can play Shaw and one of these 3-drop minions and get rid of the Witchwood Grizzly.
Which has to be done from his perspective.
Yeah.
There's currently 15 on board plus Navi's hero power, so the Witchwood Grizzly has to die for him to survive on 1 health as it stands next turn. So there really is only one line for Casie here, and despite the fact that it does afford him another turn, he knows that this is really an unwinnable position from here.
Tracking for Candle Shot can just do it for Navi here. He's gonna go for it. It's not quite it, but Ziliax looks pretty solid as well. You can still fit in the hero power, and you can clear off the Shaw with some trades.
I guess the only consideration between Ziliax and Flanking Strike is whether you prefer the 3/3 Wolf or the 3/2 body without Divine Shield but with Taunt and Lifesteal.
Yep.
So Flanking Strike is the pick there. And Navi does have to at least pay some respect to Houndmaster Shaw, so we will see most likely the Horror. Oh, actually, probably not. We see the Mossy Horror and the Devil Saw going into the Houndmaster Shaw, and the Flanking Strike hitting the Devil Saw. He'll be able to push 7 to face. It still sets up lethal and very strong board for himself, but just given the state.
Could also have gone for the Mossy into the 5/2 and then Spider Bomb, flanking your own Spider Bomb, I think. But this is just setting this up to be, no comeback for Casie, even if Rexar comes down. That's the only form of life game outside of Ziliax, and Ziliax alone wouldn't cut it. So there you go, 0 outs for Casie. Very well set up by NaviOOT. And that is a very quick game 1, the first of what could be... Oh, that is the only true mirror left, actually, but the rest of the classes are mirrored.
Yes, mirrored classes, not mirrored arc. That hasn't really come to fruition yet. Does have a top 8, but this, I believe, is his first top 4, and he's looking to win it all.
So it will be the Death Rattle Hunter. Second try from Casie up against this Q block from Navi. Don't be fooled by all the even cost cards. Possessed Lackey looks like it does not belong, but Q block is something that I have not been seeing too much in the meta. The last time I saw it in tournament was by X-Hope in EU versus CN, and he didn't quite perform too well with that. It was kind of a botched Godfrey at some point that really messed him up there, but I believe Navi will have some on-point play with this deck.
Yeah, it's definitely a deck that has fallen out of favor since the nerfs, and for me it just feels weird looking at the Warlock hero power being 2 when you're playing a slower deck with Giants.
It will be that Giant that gets him the early game aggression, but we do see Spider Bomb from Casie to be able to potentially answer that.
So the Spider Bomb is the card, the Devil Saw is the card you want on 3, but no activator. The Spider Bomb coming down now here is to stop Navi from playing that early Giant.
Yeah, a coined out Twilight Drake as well would be a little bit scarier. Oh, sorry, that's not in the list, is it? Oh my gosh,
no,
can't remember what's in Cube Block.
So a while since you played Cube Gear.
Yeah.
So from Casey's perspective, the Spider Bomb is one of those really valuable removal tools in his deck. The Warlock goes big and tall, and Spider Bomb deals with that better than anything else. So to tempo it out there is a little bit risky in the sense that it can get dealt with by lower cost minions, but the Q block just doesn't run them like an even lock does.
Yeah, it's just the two plated Beetles and 1 Doomsayer for Navi there, which aren't necessarily keeps in the matchup.
Now this is a really tricky turn for Navi. Casie was able to follow up that Spider Bomb with the Egg and the Devil Saw coming out, and you just look at his options here and none of them feel good. The Hellfire gets rid of that Spider Bomb, but then of course pops the Egg. the Giant gets eaten up by the Spider Bomb as you like, and the Spellstones feel really slow and not really obtaining their true value.
Yeah, I feel like he might just have to use a Spellstone onto the Spider Bomb here and then go for a coin Lackey on the next turn, try to get that other Void Lord left in the deck. He does have one of each of the demons, so it's 50-50 on which one he lands. Even if he gets Doomguard, at least it's able to at least clear a Devil's Soar should it come out, but he's really scared of a Death Rattle activator from Casie here. He'll be glad to see it isn't there.
So the Giggling Inventor coming out for the second time this series, hoping not to get punished. And Navi's deck, of course, is one that will actually run things like Devile, but not to be in hand at the moment. And the great thing about having that egg down as the Death Rattle Hunter is you're just so much more resilient to the AoE shenanigans that Warlock can pull.
Even a Defile here wouldn't really be able to clear anything but the Giggles itself. So I do think it has to be this Lackey. Unfortunately, it's not able to actually kill itself onto the board because of these Annoyatrons. Navi has the Hellfire to deal with things later, but it's very expensive. Trying to look for alternative lines, but the Giant just doesn't get anything done on this board of Giggles.
It is what Navi's still tempted to play, and I'm curious as to why this is so preferred over coining out the Possessed Lackey. I think to your point, those Annoyatrons are really difficult for him to get through here, but maybe from his perspective, the Possessed Lackey is going to get killed on the next turn because the only attack into his Annoyatrons, Casey isn't going to pop it for him. And as a result, it just ends up being too slow. You have to use something like the Hellfire to get rid of it, which you may not want to do.
Casey here is going to take a very easy answer onto the Mountain Giant, continue the pressure on Navi, and he has the second Lackey, and maybe he really wanted to save the coin for Godfrey. That is my guess here. So the egg counts as a 4 and an 8 technically, so it will be a full clear, I think, with Godfrey.
No, the Devil's Soul ends up on 1, right?
Right, there's no 6. Wait.
So the egg is 10? Because
Yeah,
the Devil's Soul is 6 and the egg's 4.
Not quite sure how the math works out, so thank goodness that Navi's actually going to do this for us.
Good tell we're struggling, decided to help us out. So it is going to be left on 1.
But it still was the only thing that Navi could have done there because everything else was not going to clear off enough damage onto the board.
And he was staring down 13 damage with the candle shot and the weapon included, which is why we have seen this quite defensive line from Navi here, realizing that at this point in the game, Casey can actually finish this off with the charger. Oh, wow.
It's really hoping for Dark Pact there to maybe get rid of one of these lackeys. It's just not quite there, though. Navi can survive with another Spellstone play, but it looks really weak on this turn.
Absolutely, and I wonder whether or not you have to tempo out the Prince as well. Now, obviously a card that you look to get much more value in this matchup, but with the way the game's played out, he's probably feeling under enough pressure that you just want the minion presence on board.
Since you cannot beat Katharina pulling out King Crush either way, I think you maybe just trade off the Godfrey into the 5-1 and play the Lackey, and then you're technically alive at 3 health.
And that's exactly what Navi goes for. And you can tell Navi has played a lot of this deck on ladder. It's one that people aren't piloting as much anymore. I know Navi does still play it a bit, and it does help him win those tricky turns, ones that aren't as obvious to see.
Casey, they're thinking about whether he wanted to trade first and then decide his play based on the outcome. I'm not sure if Rexar is ever better than Katharina, but, well, there is the Hunter's Mark that makes things a bit different.
I think the outcome where it is better if Doomguard comes out, right? Because if Doomguard comes out, you can actually get rid of it. If it's the Void Lord, it's a bit harder, but you do prevent cube action.
And Casey is just going to go for the alternative game plan of ignoring the Lackey in the first place.
And this is much better because if it is the Void Lord that comes out and there is no cube, you can actually then deal with this with the Hunter's Mark, the Deathstalker Rexar, and it does a lot of work that way. But Navi has a fair few plays to capitalize on this now with the cube and the Prince Taldaram.
Yeah, I think you can happily Taldaram this and maybe cube the mini Void Lord, get some Void Walkers onto the board.
So, aren't you meant to Prince the Void Lord and then cube the Prince version?
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry,
Yeah,
did I say something different? I wonder if there's.
Oh,
any
I might have
argument.
misheard.
Tremble before Taldaram.
It's just confusing because they're both named Void Lord after this.
So Navi's setting up the wall here, and he knows that Casey's only real burst is the King Crush, and with the board in the state that it currently is, he cannot get through, and that will give him another turn to continue to stabilize. And I believe this game is going to go down to the two heroes, Deathstalker Rexar and Blood Reaver Gul'dan, and it could be a long one.
Yes. You see there had an option to Candle Shot down the original Void Lord and then get more damage onto these little ones, but the way that the minion damage works out, this actually I think clears more minions in the end.
Because the Candle Shot gets rid of one of the Void Walkers?
Yes, the original ones, and then all your minions have upwards of 3 attack, and well, 3 or upwards attack anyway.
So building a beast there, and he's picked the Parrot and combined it with... Was it the
I didn't quite catch it. Navi here on the back foot, but it's a comfort to him to know that there is no silence, of course, in the Death Rattle Hunter deck. There's also no mind control tech in the list of Casie, so he can quite comfortably, I guess, drop down the second Void Lord. Sad that the second Lackey is useless in his hand now that the other Doom Guard has been drawn, though.
That is one of the reasons why this Cube Lock has found a home for Navi in this tournament. Silence has been dropped out a lot in the previous months as the meta has changed, and that was, I guess, one of the real reasons why it was very weak after the nerf. There was so much silence still being run around. But now with that going away, you do find there are these decks where Navi can play with better information because you know there's no chance the silence will actually come down and ruin your taunts.
I do think Navi has to go for the Void Lord this turn. Everything else looks too weak on board, and he is still only at 6. I like the damaging of the cube to kind of speed up its death later on. I think Navi is most concerned about Mossy Horror post the death of this Void Lord.
And there is one of those in Casey's deck. This also starts to clean up the board for the Blood Reaver Gul'dan, which I think is likely to come down next turn unless we see a better option come out. So Casey looking for... I'm not sure, but it's not any of those.
I think he really wants that Mossy because if he's worried about the Gul'dan on curve, more likely there will be a lot of Void Lords onto the board, and those are such a pain to deal... Void Walkers, sorry. And those are such a pain to deal with. And he just won't be able to get through to Navi's life total in that case, giving Navi the time to simply heal up with that hero power.
Right, so the Mossy Horror there would have been able to push an extra 3 damage to face. Okay. So this is a pretty strong turn.
Or Grizzly. Yeah. Has both Grizzlies been played?
No, there's one left in the deck.
Okay, so that was the better outcome in this situation for Casie. Is a very scary board. Indeed.
Super scary, but Navi has the answer in his hand with that Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Well, how bad is Defile and Hellfire? Well, you're looking a little dead with you Hellfire, but you have this Spellstone. The Defile, okay, let me get this right since I got the Godfrey wrong a while ago. There's no 3 health proc onto it, so it doesn't quite get the job done. But with Hellfire, it is not going to clear what comes out of Kathrina, so it makes it a bit difficult. But you will get the upgraded Spellstone and be able to hit the Witchwood Grizzly that comes out, and I think heal out of range of just dying. Oh, because you got the Void Lords, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever Hellfire here. The chance that they get Life Drinker off Rexar is a real threat.
Oh, you can create the 3 in this way, and then thus clear off the Kathrina as well.
Nice little play by Navi here. Good Defile spot.
It's really strong against King Crush and against a possible Mossy Horror, which is why we saw Navi forego the Gul'dan on that previous turn. And I think Navi's in the clear now. Don't see a way that Casie will be able to clear these two Void Lords. And the build of Beasts can be really strong, but the double Doom Guards from Navi might be able to close out the game. Not really. 35, right?
Yeah, I would say never. Casie still is a chance from here.
Poisonous is a big deal. And that damages both of them, right?
Yes, that would just kill both off.
Never say never, indeed. Gul'dan is a very powerful failsafe for Navi. Dark Pact? Way too late at this point, huh?
So what if you put Possessed Lackey to the right of the Void Lord and then put Doomsayer to the right of that?
I wonder.
Then he won't be able to kill off the Doomsayer, true, I think.
I think it's either that or you have to think about putting Gul'dan down this turn. The problem with putting Gul'dan down is you just lose so much value.
Yeah, it's true. In terms of board space, and because the Hydra will immediately be able to clear off Void Walkers that come out because you can't even answer the Hydra. So the more I look at it, I like your Lackey Doomsayer, very sneaky play.
Navi, they'll be weighing up all the options here. What things can beat him from this position? If he does do that Possessed Lackey Doomsayer line, are there things that Casie can beat him with? And if so, should you just play out the Blood Reaver Gul'dan?
You can also put them to the far.
There's probably a consideration for whether or not you Dark Pact as well then. If he's worried about, say like Wind Fury comes down onto the Hydra.
Yeah, so you would rather Dark Pact and create more buffers away from the Doomsayer. Does that make Mossy Horror a bigger punish? But then that means the Mossy's gone for your Gul'dan.
I mean, Mossy Horror is a punish anyway because it would kill the Doomsayer, so...
Oh, right. Oh my gosh, yeah. And the Lackey.
When Casie doesn't know that the Lackey won't bring anything out, though, at this point. He does not have that information. And given Navi has just 5 cards in hand and 13 in the deck, he would probably believe there's a good chance that Doomguard comes out of this. But with the Lackey being killed off, he's going to get that knowledge that it is, in fact, not in the deck and in Navi's hand. So he knows 2 out of the 5 cards now.
This Doomsayer looks very well protected, right in the middle there. And Casie, I think, is just going to take the roll onto the beast that he gets.
Oh, he actually won't know that the Doom Guards aren't in the deck because the way the Death Rattles work, the board fills before anything's pulled. That's interesting.
Yeah, actually.
So Doomsayer goes off here, and this has worked out perfectly for Navi. He can follow it up with the Blood Reaver Gul'dan, putting himself up to a little bit more life with that 14. The hero power comes online, and a bunch of Void Lords and Walkers will be coming out.
Pretty good outcome for Navi. They're getting 2 of the Void Lords and is safe even if Mossy Horror were to come down. Might have turned the corner here, but Casie is still at that healthy life total. And Navi does not really have space to play out these Doom Guards to find a lethal sooner, if possible. Could Hellfire away the board if necessary somehow.
Yeah, Navi is running out of threats when it comes to this deck. I know that sounds weird to say with double Doom Guard in hand, but there's a chance they could discard each other.
I do believe that that Plated Beetle had charge, but Casie chose not to kill off a Voidwalker to prevent Navi from having board space. I like the play there.
It's interesting though, because Navi can just create that himself by attacking it. So I don't know what the benefit of that is.
He's choosing to target the 1/4 with the hero power, so I guess he might not even clear the 3/4 at all. Or, oh, Suicide 4 into it to make sure that there's even more board space.
And little bit of damage will be going face. Starting to chip away at Casey's life total. It does seem like a far distance for Navi to go with Casie on 34 and the attack that he keeps putting on the board being small chip damage rather than those big totals.
Looks at this point that Casie either needs some kind of bloat that poisonous combo or just a really sick Lich King card off of the Zombeast. Doom Pact being the first one in mind for me.
Oh, that would be huge. We're going to see the zombies come down, and it looks like Casie is fishing for an answer here with the Play Dead coming out onto it.
It's a very interesting use of Play Dead.
Yeah,
Magic Shell, not the best one here.
It definitely can be useful in this matchup, but when you're this far behind on board, it definitely doesn't look good. So the Kobold Librarian here will but it'll dig Navi a little bit closer to the bottom of his deck, and this one looks like it could be heading to fatigue with Casie having just 4 cards left, but Navi gets the huge pickup with the Mountain Giant.
Huge is definitely the right word here, and I don't know if we've seen all the Death Rattle activators there, but having seen one Play Dead come onto this Arthas and Navi knowing that Doom Pact is probably one of the only ways he can lose from this point, he's definitely going to make removing that a priority. Obliterate is the pickup.
Actually a
Decent.
nice way of removing the Mountain Giant.
Yep. Probably take it here, but Casie needs to mount an offensive of his own, and I simply don't see how it's going to happen. Wildebeests are a little bit too slow.
So Cave Hydra comes out again.
Does it have Poisonous again?
Yes, he's got the Poisonous Charge one.
Goodness.
Wow,
What?
that's a big pickup. And was that a board ordering or board spacing error by Navi that allowed that to happen?
Possibly, but man, how often do you think? Well, I guess you saw it
Second
once.
time this game.
So you can't excuse it. You can't excuse yourself from seeing it as not being a possibility, but you really think it's not going to happen again once it does in the game. Even so, Navi's still looking quite far ahead, but now the Mossy Horror, which is still in Casey's deck, only 3 cards left, could get a lot of work done.
So Navi is thinking about playing the Doom Guard this turn, and it must mean there's something left of the deck that he doesn't want to discard, which is why he's playing it out now.
He's strongly hoping for that to remain onto the board, but at least he still has the other Doom Guard as some form of burst, and he's going to push quite a bit of damage this turn. He is looking pretty sad there. I guess he is indeed beating himself up about that board positioning.
So Mossy Horror with Obliterate would clear the board here. The pull off the top is the Spider Bomb, and that's not nearly as strong in this situation, but it can be paired with that Ziliax to gain Casie 5 life and put a decent taunt in the way that will also remove a minion.
Yeah, it gives him time to draw into that Mossy, and with the board reversal like that, we could have a game on our hands, but then Casie is still so far into fatigue, right? He would have to get consecutively really strong beasts to be able to kill Navi before he himself dies to fatigue.
Ooh. Well, that's very interesting.
Yes, I think you might just faceless the Spider Bomb. Of course, there's a chance that the Death Rattle kills the faceless, but definitely has to be better than just discarding it with the Doom Guard, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the Faceless Manipulator does come out to hit the Spider Bomb this turn. I guess the question then is whether or not it attacks into the Spider Bomb itself, or if you trade 2 of your both your Kobold Librarians into it.
Well, Hero Power and 1 Kobold seems okay.
I think if you're playing the Faceless, you're probably playing your Doom Guard this turn as well.
Okay.
So I don't think the Hero Power is active. But the cards left in Navi's deck aren't really that high value, so you worry about discarding them in future turns. Probably still.
Looks like he doesn't want the Faceless to possibly die, but I wonder what kind of Faceless targets are left in Navi's deck that he actually wants.
So you can do something like, if Casie gets a cube on something or gets a nice Death Rattle, you can play Spirit Singer Umbra and then Faceless Manipulator.
It's definitely a thing.
But I'm starting to reach here in terms of what's left that he could possibly be looking for. I believe the only Doomsday was played. We've seen the Swamp Ooze. Both Giants been played, both Void Lords been played. Godfrey's gone. Skull and Minari's left.
Yes. If this hit Winfield, oh my goodness. Looks like Casie could be putting quite a bit of damage to the face here if he wants it, but instead he's going to go for it.
Oh, but does this open up lethal for Navi? It does. The Faceless Manipulator with double bananas and hero power
what?
should just be the
Oh
lethal.
my goodness.
Oh, he spots it, and this is going to be 16 just from the Mukla. The hero power is going to come out, and Navi has discovered an insane lethal.
Wow, I mean, I questioned the save on the Faceless there, but there are some insane beasts that cost a lot more than 5 to play, and when you can get that down, and I'm sure you didn't expect Mukla in particular, but anything with charge would have been decent. That was a really cool way to end that game.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere as well. We're getting into these really slow, grindy turns where each...
But yeah, this big druid, Taunt Druid looks like it should be pretty well positioned from here on out, and Navi has 3 tries with it, but Casie has taken worse odds and been able to make them work in his favor, so we cannot count him out of it yet. And I think, personally, as much as I like Casie as a player and as a person, it would be so great for Navi to finally take a finals run after so long.
I mean, I think the same can be said for Casie, and don't get me wrong, I'm cheering for Navi all the way. I want the Aussie to take the championship home. But Casie is just as deserving as anyone to be in this top 4 and to be in the finals. So let's jump into Game 3 now between NaviOOT and Casie. Navi is, of course, piloting that Taunt Druid. Casie is going to be queuing up that Death Rattle Hunter to begin.
And this matchup is one that I would say is sometimes difficult for the Taunt Druid in the same way that it's sometimes difficult for Malygos Druid. In those turns that you take to ramp up and get to your win conditions, the Hunter can sometimes just put down these Death Rattle board, the egg boards that are so difficult to clear for Druid, and once they got that Katrina going, there's just no way of clearing it. And I did see a very crazy game at an HCT event, I can't quite remember which was this exact matchup where when the Death Rattle Hunter gets its perfect board and the max value cubes, it can actually go head-to-head with the Oakheart boards and Hadronox boards because a bunch of crushes can actually value trade a bunch of Primordial Drakes.
And speaking of good boards, Casie has got off to a great start here. The egg coined out on 2, followed up by that Stalker. That's 8 damage on turn 3 for Casie to direct towards Navi. And thankfully for Navi, he does have the early answer in the Oaken Summons.
Yeah, and not only that, it also double buffs these Spellstones, well, 1 buff each, and that's going to be very useful, but oh my gosh, this draw.
Double play dead. Combined with the Candle Shot allows for a very easy trade from Casey's perspective. Starts putting damage to Navi's face and now has so much pressure on just turn 4.
It's absolutely nuts. With the draw of Lich King, I assume this Nourish is going to be going to ramp. At least Navi can play the Spellstones to remove the 5-2 and 3-3 if he wants. It's not great.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things it's interesting that he didn't do the second Spellstone there, just because the Lich King is a likely play to come down next turn.
Yeah, and the way the numbers work out, 5 + 3 is very neat to clear it off.
Quick
I
math.
do wonder as well. Thanks, the first math I got right this whole series, Jackson. All right.
Ooh, the swipe opens up some good future turns to Navi. Being prepared with that Spellstone can get up to that 5 number.
Casie has the tracking to look for Hunter's Mark, though, which could be absolutely backbreaking. He was 1 mana short of going Spider Bomb and Flanking Strike onto it. Doesn't look like he has the Hunter's Mark as an option here based on his reaction.
No, and some interesting choices there, but looks like he took the second Flanking Strike.
Can't complain about this.
No, I mean, from Casey's perspective, this is a very, very strong start. And with the Taunt Druid not running any Spreading Plagues, it's just not a board that can be easily answered. Oakheart for Navi here would be a massive draw if it can pop out its head right now, and unfortunately it is not the case. So can he keep himself in the game? It looks like with the speed he's playing at, he's found the line. The swipe combining with the Spellstone will take down the Devil Saw, as well as one of those 3/3s. He's alive on board as a result.
Yes, and Casie does have the option of Spider Bomb Flanking Strike the Spider Bomb just to get rid of this, but it does only push 7 damage if he wants to go for that. So I don't think it's a very good use of the Flanking Strike. So going for it this way, and already setting up the Spider Bomb in case of something like Primordial Drake coming down or even Sleepy Dragon.
I think the other thing from Casey's perspective as well is that next turn you want to be playing Katharina because it does discover more lethal opportunities with King Crush. So if you're not playing Spud Bomb next turn, you probably just want to play it this turn. And it does have all those great targets as you've mentioned.
I don't think there's any outs for Navi with that draw.
And you can just keep hitting more armor, which is a weird, unfair thing that Druids seem to do sometimes.
So cycle with Wrath, try to hope you get branching paths, and then you can heal up to 24, at which point Casie only has, I think, 14 damage next turn that Navi can see. Of course, Katharina can pull King Crush.
So the Wrath here does come out.
I think it was just for the 3 damage.
She's got 3 damage, okay. So this does keep him alive on board with 1 health.
Casie ordering it like the Crush is meant to go out. Attack first. And what'll it be? There you go, with his first win on the board.
Very quick game there for Casie. This actually is both of their styles. Navi loves playing fast, doesn't enjoy playing against those that rope, and Casie is known as one of the fastest when it comes to taking turns. So it really has been a quick series so far.
Yeah, I do think that Navi's
matchups. Since the dawn of time, they are looking for wild growths and nourishes in their opening hands. For Casie, the Twig is also very useful in this matchup, and for Navi, if he can spot the O-Cart, he will be holding on to it.
Thankfully enough, I don't think throughout any stream match in HCT Singapore that we've ever seen just that unbeatable curve of Wild Growth, Nourish, and to coin O-Card. That's never fun to cast or watch, but it's been a bit more of these honest matchups, and natural mistake, indication of no Wild Growth for me. Do you have it?
Oh!
Yes, you do!
Hit him with a greetings, Navi. No. He's not about the BM life.
Nope. Just the chatting between games, and it curves pretty well into the Oaken Summons to thin out the deck, get rid of some of those Ironwood Golems, and things are looking up for Navi, especially since this taunt minion makes getting the Twig whacking away a little bit more costly for Casie. I think he is, yes, still just going to do it because that swing is just so crucial to get you back in the matchup when you're behind.
Yeah, you could see the look on Navi's face there. While he was up, very happy that he hit the Wild Growth, as soon as the Twig came down, you saw him all just come down with a little bit as well. He knows that is one of the ways that Casie can win this matchup, by getting that Twig out early, doing some funny Malago stuff, all before Navi can really develop that taunt board.
You think that Casey's next turn might not be too great, but then followed up, he can go Spreading Plague with double Arcane Tyrant. So Navi has this one window of the next turn to try and develop something else. I believe this turn starts with Branching Paths for draw, but it always feels bad when you have this UI. It's just so hard to say whether or not you're gonna get the Nourish. It's not likely.
So
Perhaps starting with one draw, and then if it's decent, you can.
Time waits for no one.
it's just really tricky from Navi's perspective here, because the thing with Branching Paths is you really want to hold on to it to the armor to stop Malagos from doing the crazy combos. So it looks like he is just going to cash it in for double armor here.
So I guess in his mind he does still have like 3 turns to draw into. Well, maybe 2 turns before it's not that great for the Nourish, and he is just going to value the armor a little bit more highly than he would otherwise because of the reason you mentioned. So we see that he will be a little bit more passive.
I think there's a decent chance from Casey's perspective that you can read into the fact that that was double armor as well, and the time that Navi took to play it, as a sign there is the UI in hand.
Or at the very least that if there was a UI, then there's no then there is not necessarily a Nourish. And this board is looking very much in Casey's favor, but Navi has this handful of Wraths that let him move it and swipe as well.
This is actually useful for Navi in a way, because he's trying to clear the hand for the UI draws. And so to be able to play Swipe and Wrath here to create a mana efficient turn is very beneficial for him.
Expect that Navi will very much want to hold on to the coin, even though it would allow him to clear the 1/4 with the hero power, just to have sped up UI, but that draw from Casie.
That is just going to help his swing turn coming up that much further, and with Alexstrasza and Lich King in hand can be putting a lot of pressure on Navi just with those two.
Yeah, it's so strong just going Alex and then you can go Lich King. If Navi puts down something like Primordial Drake this turn, he can even naturalize it away. And yeah, Casie looking very far ahead here. And Navi's probably, after he sees this turn, going to be very glad that he went for the armor previously.
So from Navi's perspective, you have to hold on to, I believe, all of your removal here. You can throw away one Wrath if you really want to clear down the Beetle.
Navi feels like he can maybe play out the cube here just to have something onto the board, but it's really weak if he thinks that Casie will go something for 9 mana into Twig, into the cube, and then UI. It seems really, really bad. And also the cube is only a 1-of in the deck for the 1-of Witching Hour. This is a very less greedy version of this Taunt Druid list, so he might want to be holding on to that for longer.
So
brutal,
Alexstrasza comes down and followed up by the Twig. And Casey's going to be able to start the Twig regen by playing Wild Growth and can follow it up with the Lich King. Very strong turn here for Casie.
Not only that, it means that Navi will very much want to naturalize, and that delays his UI by another turn. Can take the turn to clear everything though with Naturalize, Swipe, and Spellstone.
Yes, and the Oaken Summon can follow all that up. There's one more Wood Golems in the deck?
Yes.
Yep.
I don't think the buff on the Spellstone actually matters in this case if he wants to clear off everything. And he can actually coin all of this out because next turn he'll have the natural 10 mana for UI anyway. So I think, all things considered, it's not too bad of a turn. It's already removing 2 of the big minions from Casie. And he's still at a healthy 39.
So the one consideration for holding on to the coin is that if Malygos follows this turn up, you want the coin to be able to get your second naturalize off the UI. But how likely is it that Casie has Lich King, Alexstrasza, Malygos, and Twig all in the top 13 cards?
Not very likely. And I can understand the argument for maybe saving the naturalize for Malygos itself and just leaving up the Alexstrasza. It's not that weak, but we can see that this particular Lich King card in Obliterate is going to be quite punishing because it'll allow the Alexstrasza to go face. So he's just going to go for the naturalize here, and it's going to be scary for Navi if that Malygos, as you said, is near entering this hand.
And it's crazy to say that. With 45 life and UI in hand, he's actually afraid of the card.
Flower power!
So unfortunately for Casie, the Malygos is not found. The Green Petal Florist comes out and will buff the Floop, which does more or less nothing.
Well, what it does is that when Malygos does enter the hand, it can be a cheap way to discount the Malygos, just saving the Florist.
But this position's now starting to look very, very strong for Navi.
Is at 50 health even after an Alexstrasza, which is just crazy, and a part of the reason why we put this matchup as favored for the Taunt Druid. Casey's not out of it yet though. I feel like an early Malfurion could help him quite a bit as well. Or not early, but soon.
Yeah. And what world does Casie win, really? Because they're even on fatigue. Navi's much further ahead on health and has much better minions left in the deck.
Yeah, and the Twig's been used, Alexstrasza's been used, even though he has this discounted Florist, which can discount a Malygos. The best that could have happened is for him to have the Malygos that turn and hope for a 50-50 of the Florist to land onto Malygos, and then and it doesn't really change the mana that much because it's 7 to play both that and the Faceless, which doesn't leave enough space for a swipe in terms of mana. So yeah, I really don't see the outs for Casie at this point.
So the O-Cart here is coming to hand, I guess, better late than never, in the sense that it can still pull out the other hatchling, the other Dragon Hatcher, sorry, and the Sleepy Dragon, which is still left in the deck.
Yes, it is just the one Sleepy Dragon.
But from Navi's perspective, he's, I guess, still a little bit worried about fatigue. And so by playing this out, you thin your deck 2 cards more. So could I just play a taunt must be a consideration for Navi.
It's just sad that he has to leave up the Florist, but I feel like the second Florist tick is often less scary than the first tick, because once the Malygos gets down to 2, it already means that it can leave enough mana to fit in double swipe and double fire. If the Malygos is at 0, it just means an additional hero power, which isn't much. I think he's fine leaving up the Florist here.
You do have to be worried about it though in a deck that's running Faceless Manipulator. Because you can get your Malygos Faceless combo both to 0 and then do a bunch more damage in the process. And that's what Casey's setting up for here. Leaving that Florist alive has allowed him to get a tick of one of these minions.
Yeah, and it's, well, unless Navi plays the Primordial Drake this turn, he could have gotten a second tick, but he definitely won't allow that to happen.
So it's hit the Faceless there, which does allow for some very powerful Moonfires, but no combinations with swipes.
Yeah.
The other thing to consider, of course, though, is it does make 4/12 bodies the Faceless Manipulator, rather than what Floop does, which is create a 3/4. And Navi's already burnt one of the Naturalizers so far. So from Casey's perspective, there's a very, very good chance that at least one Malygos survives to a second turn.
Yeah, he's actually just going to go for it this turn. I like it a lot. He can use the Spellstone to clear off the Primordial Drake and already rip one Moonfire.
Oh, he doesn't even need to use the Moonfire on the minion there with the Spellstone dealing 14 damage.
There.
He's the Faceless Manipulator, rather than what Floop does, which is create a 3/4. And Navi's already burnt one of the Naturalizers so far. So Casey's...
The thing about using the Naturalize is that it does draw him closer to those burn spells, but it's definitely less punishing than having both Malygos stay up.
Oh, he had both swipes left. Sorry, it's 24 then that he can do now. Plus 4 off the Malygos.
Casey can actually just pretty easily clear up the Hadronox board because he has these swipes to the face. That is absolutely insane. Easiest way to clear a Druid board I've ever seen.
You only see this stuff in Druid games. It's actually crazy how powerful these turns are, and it's still not being enough to win.
Navi has to... Oh, he just loses to UI this way then.
Is there Moonfire left in Casey's deck?
I think so. UI and Moonfire, I do believe.
If there's a Moonfire left, then this will be a tied series for Casey. UI comes out, and there is in fact a Moonfire. And Casey pulled that one out of nowhere, tying this series up at 2-2. Wow.
I was really floored by that. At one point, Navi was at 50 health post Alex Straza, but I think it was really that timing of having seen the Naturalizers and just going in after that was really, really powerful. Well played to Casie. Navi, I think he technically had a chance to survive there if he went for armor with the branching paths. So the UI plus Moonfire is 16. Navi.
Opening mulligan, I would not be surprised to see him hold on to that one at all. But he has found the Giant, and Navi's found a little bit of heat himself with double ramp in his opening hand. What mulligans we have for Game 5 here, both players getting off to a pretty good start.
Yes, indeed. Casey, of course, will be hoping to play out this Giant as soon as possible, and we did see something very similar.
Great pickup for Navi there, that's massive.
Yeah. I did see this kind of amazing ramp from Tom60229 yesterday, but he just wasn't able to get there because he didn't have the Naturalizes. So unless there's an O-card or Naturalize, I wouldn't say that Navi is in the clear just yet.
Yeah, the O-card is the type of card, or is the card that if Navi can find early, will just close out this game before Casey can really do too much. So the Giant coming down now, and Navi has some decisions to weigh up. He can nourish and then just hit in with his hero power and the Spellstone into that Giant, but if he wants to conserve life, he can just armor up through the branching paths, as well as combining that with one draw and then using the Spellstone and the minion.
I definitely like this, especially since ramping up with the Nourish. You don't really want to be playing Hadronox that early, so going for the 1-drop actually helps him decide what he wants to do with the Nourish later on. Having seen a Dragon Hatcher drawn though, I do assume this will definitely be going to the ramp direction.
And Casie with a pretty sad turn 4 here. You don't really want to be playing double 2-drops. You want to be playing out more Giants. And Navi finding another Nourish.
This hand is fire from NaviOOT. He will be able to just curve out very well into the Dragon Hatcher and refill with that Nourish. And we don't see a second Giant available to Casie. He does have this Skulking Geist to remove the Naturalizes, but if you don't have minions that necessarily need to get naturalized anyway, not that great onto the board.
So the Dragon Hatch comes straight out, pulls the Primordial Drake. There's only 2 Drakes and 1 Sleepy Dragon in this list for Navi, so not too many cards that it can actually pull. Now Casie has to consider whether or not he wants to use the Spellbreak now. If it's used now, it cannot be used to stop the Hadronox later.
Good thing for Casie though is that, of course, as Taunt Druid, there cannot be spreading mistakes in the list for NaviOOT, so he's free. Casie is free to go wide onto the board, and he has minions going into the list game. But
wow, what a draw for Navi there. The UI coming into hand, the one of in the deck. He's ramped into orbit with the UI coming out on 10. It's going to clean up that Skulking Geist. Not even going to mill cards for Navi here, and he's going to be able to get a lot of damage off the board. The O-Card pickup, if there's no other dragons drawn, or at least if there's one left in the deck, the that's a little bit sad. Okay, that decreases the value of that O-Card.
Do you really want to complain about this?
No.
Yeah.
No. As a Navi fan, I am thrilled with the way that turn worked out.
We take those. It's okay, even if the O-Card cannot be pulling anything of significance. I expect it won't really be played in this game anyway. He can still get another Primordial Drake with the Dragon Hatcher, or just play a Sleepy Dragon. Looks like he was hovering over Hadronox. I feel like it's a little early, so yeah, I definitely like this.
I do like the Dragon Hatcher there, just because you don't want to risk that Primordial Drake being drawn naturally. With only 8 cards left in deck, there is a decent chance of that. And then the Hadronox can follow up. I guess from Navi's perspective, the one thing you do have to be worried about is the Hadronox won't be killed by Casie, so you kind of need a couple of turns to do it yourself, and you don't want that to be too slow. If you leave it too late when Casey's board's already too big, it can just ignore it and get the lethal that way.
Yeah, it's also the case that there's no more Naturalizes because of the Geist, so it's going to be difficult. Not to mention there's no more Spellstones either, so you can't just use Spellstone and Wrath to clear up your Hadronox. And I think with that in mind, once Casie sees the Hadronox, he'll be a little bit hesitant about whether he wants to put the Lich King onto the board, although it's probably going to come onto the board this turn.
Make Doom Packs off the Lich King, a card that Casie will be looking for. So I don't mind seeing that come down at all right now.
Warriors of the frozen wastes.
With that 8/8 minion on board, I do think that gives Navi the signal to drop the Hadronox. While it still has a minion, it can immediately die by attacking into.
Yeah, you just need to find a turn now as Navi to play that Hadronox out. And I think anything but playing it now is going to be too slow. And we've seen other people get punished by this as well, where they want to be a little bit greedy, play another taunt instead of Hadronox, and then just never find an opportunity later in the game to develop it.
He's actually going to spend the turn clearing with Swipe and Wrath, looks like.
If he does, that is showing huge respect to the Lich King. And I'm not sure that he needs to. I guess the one thing that Navi is considering is that his list is less greedy. And so there is a chance that things like anti-magic shells can boost a Casie board large enough to the state where Hadronox taunts can't just handle it.
Yeah, and I think maybe another thing he's considering is that he hasn't drawn one of Witching Hour Cube, so even if the Hadronox were to come down that turn, let's say the first board gets answered, there aren't too many taunts behind it yet, I think, maybe 4. Then he doesn't have the immediate refill, and what you really want to be doing in this matchup is that as soon as the even lock spends all these resources clearing off your taunt board, if they even can, you want to immediately refill it so they don't have the time to develop their own boards, such as Hook Reavers.
Okay, so the Greymane pairing up with that Twilight Drake to come down and put as much damage as possible on the board for Casie there. NaviOOT now has a turn for Hadronox to come down, and if it survives, he can use that Carnivorous Cube to gobble it up.
And if it doesn't survive, hey, bunch of minions. I think the thing he is scared of is possibly the Spellbreaker, which is a one-of in Casey's list.
And we saw at the start of the game, that was used to get rid of the first Dragon Hatcher.
Ah, yes.
So the Hadronox is in the clear every time now.
Casey Casie is just bracing for the worst here, expecting the cube to come out. He just develops the biggest board he can, but we are going to see 2 dragons, 2 Ironwood Golems, I think.
Yes, both Ironwood Golems will be played, both Primordial Drakes have been played.
Don't even need the cube, that's my mistake because he can trade it away, but perhaps you just want the cube to have the Hadronoxes in them.
I think that's a tricky call to make. If you are going to do that, no, I don't think you do, because you can Ferocious Howl and Wild Growth to get the Witching Hour on the following turn guaranteed.
Yes, oh, he only has 3 cards left, so that would guarantee it. Don't think he wants to be drawing too much though. Other thing he can do is just play down Lich King or Sleepy Dragon this turn, which when you get the Witching Hour is just going to be added to the pool and makes for the next Hadronox board being even stronger.
So Navi's current board after this Hadronox bumps in would be 2 3/6s with Taunt, 2 4/8s with Taunt, and that actually doesn't look that good against Casey's board.
Now that you mention it, yeah, I mean, with the Defiles in hand as well, there must be some way, especially with Frostmourne, that it's efficiently cleared up by Casie, so Navi is just going to put down Lich King as well. Really deciding on whether he wants to turbo out the Witching Hour.
I like this, holding on to the excess mana as well, so if you don't hit it next turn, you can grab it
Anti-Magic Shell onto the Taunt Druid board is just so difficult to beat outside of a Doom Pact, which was not the Lich King card for Casie.
Is there a nice Defile play here? Not really with the way the minions work out after that DI has been played.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is a little bit awkward.
So that Amethyst Spellstone deals 5 damage.
I think there might be a decent Defile here, which will still leave you with 2 minions.
How could you be left?
Perhaps not. I've not had the best track record with Defile and similar effects in the series, so...
It's just amazing to me that Casie takes these turns so quickly. I think there's a lot to consider there. And he's either just a human computer in terms of figuring out what he wants to do, or he's just played this matchup so many times that he knows what he should be doing.
So that's the Witching Hour for Navi. Can't quite kill off these 2 Drakes, but the Lich King is now in the pool alongside 4 Ironwood Golems, it seems like.
So what else is there for Navi here? And with just 2 cards left in the deck now, I wonder what they are. Have we seen both swipes?
I don't think so.
Because the second swipe is pretty useful here. But I do just like cashing in this Witching Hour Carnivorous Cube and building this massive board. Because even if the Lich King card that Casey's holding is the Doom Pact, the fact that you have the cube that then generates 2 Hadronox means that you're in such a strong position.
Yes, completely agree. It looks like Navi is just going to go for that. Most of the time you get a lot of Ironwood Golems, but
is pretty useful here. But I do just like cashing in this Witching Hour Carnivorous Cube and building this massive board. Because even if the Lich King card that Casey's holding is the Doom Pact, the fact that you have the cube that then generates 2 Hadronox means that you're in such a strong to the Drake. Is there a better way?
Infernal into the 4/7 creates a 1 and 2 just like that, so you can
you've already got a
freely
1.
trade away. Well, I think you'd rather trade away the 6/1 so that it frees up, or rather it puts the health down for some of these Drakes. Making that trade though, I don't think this is going to be a Defile turn for Casie.
No. No, if it is, he's lost me on how he's going to achieve it.
Is he then clearing space for a Gul'dan?
If he is, then he's pretty unhappy that he can't get the DI traded. But I don't believe Gul'dan would be doing enough, and it looks like he's trying to get the Spellstone out. A few more minions being traded in. And I wonder from this position, with 4 minions on the board, if Navi even needs to... With... is AMS, Branching Paths, and Wrath lethal?
It looks like it has the potential to be, for sure.
So one of the Ironwood Golems kills the Drake, then the other Ironwood Golem's on 7,
well,
the Drake's on 8.
You don't have the the armor to attack with the golems unless you go for 1 tick of armor with the branching
true.
paths. So each minion you can put them at +3 attack between the anti-magic and the armor. So 5, 5, 5. I don't think it's a lethal. 5, 6, 6. Either way, it's still extremely strong here.
I think, yeah, if you just double attack anti... do you want the armor that badly? I guess you do want the attacks. It's much better that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really good. 13, 20.
Even though it's not lethal, I don't really see a way that Casie can come back from this. Even if there's some kind of magic defile, the cube still has the Hadronoxes inside of it, and no more spell breakers are available for Casie.
Well, that does make it interesting for Casie, though. Oh, I guess not really, because while he can clear off all but one minion with the Black Knight, it doesn't keep him alive, so forced to Gul'dan here.
Shadow.
And I can't remember how many Vulgar were played in this game. Just 1. So that means if there's still a swipe... Oh, there isn't. Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
So Sleepy Dragon just looks like the solid thing to do here. Keep pushing pace. But, well, there's an argument for weakening the cube to immediately get the top board back. On the next turn. It's actually...
No, I think that's fine from Navi because Casey's used both spellstones, so he can never go up past 7 now, and as a result, it means the cube would have to be killed or blocked somehow. Was there other defense that Casey had?
Yeah,
like
I'm
Blood River
just
Gul'dan?
unsure if there's a remaining Sun
bloody
Fury Protector. I think that would have been
decisions.
the lone punish at this point. If there had been both, though, then I can definitely respect the face play here, and it doesn't look to me as if Casie has any outs here, because he cannot heal up past 7, and the cube has 7 attack. If he kills the cube, 2 Hadronox pop out,
So
and that
many
will just be...
bloody decisions.
Oh, is this actually a magic defile? I don't think there's a way. He can put the cube to 2, and then he'll have a 1, 2, 3, but how are you dealing with the Hadronoxes after that?
You are not.
Yeah. I would agree, and we have our second finalist now. Indeed, the lifesteal face. There
And
you go.
there you have it. NaviOOT will be our second
Is that how it
finalist.
works? I thought you just die there.
Nope, it keeps you
Okay.
alive.
I've never had to do that to my own face where I just concede straight up in that case. So there you go. NaviOOT versus Bailey will be our final here at HCT Singapore.
Congratulations to Navi. A long time coming for a tour stop final, and he will have the chance at winning it all. Could not be more thrilled for the man.
Not at all, yeah. No more thrilled than possible at all. But for Casie, this is